Cutiespectives is now available on these podcast platforms.
I mean, I love the community. You don't tend to meet boring people in the community.
You can take a quick look at me and see that I'm also not that boring at all.
I think a lot of you are very messy. We're all just different individual people.
Cutiespectives is presented free of mid-roll ads thanks to the support of viewers like you. Hello everyone, welcome back to Cutiespectives, sharing the perspectives of people all throughout the LGBT spectrum. I'm Jasmine Page, and today I'm welcoming another very special guest to the show, artist and Transgender Health and Wellness Center Outreach Manager, Skylar Swift Kardon. Thank you so much for joining me on this video.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I just wanted to let everyone know also as well that I am currently holding my charity livestream event, Play is Love, where we're helping to raise funds for the Transgender Health and Wellness Center throughout the month of June. We're hoping to raise at least $1,000, so please head over to my Twitch page and donate. Any amount of money will be very much appreciated, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I mean, if it's okay, I could jump in and talk a little bit about what the THWC does.
Yeah, of course. Actually, that's the first question for you that I have. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Getting ahead of you.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about the organization.
Absolutely. So I'm Skylar Swift Kardon. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns. I am a transmasculine artist. And as you just said, Jasmine, I work as the outreach manager at the Transgender Health and Wellness Center of Southern California. We provide a variety of services, including hair removal, community health care, free mental health care, housing and employment support, social services, legal support, and of course, social support and community building for transgender and gender expansive people across Southern California. Our services, particularly in hair removal and community healthcare, are fully covered by most insurances, including 100% covered under Medi-Cal, and those proceeds from those services go towards our housing and social service programs to help take care of trans and gender expansive people in Southern California. So, it's a pretty critically important organization, particularly during these times, and we serve Palm Springs, Riverside, and San Diego, as well as the surrounding areas, so less served areas of Southern California as compared to, say, Los Angeles.
Right, exactly. I love the work that you guys do, especially for me, I'm actually a patient with the Trans Health and Wellness Center myself. I am currently receiving electrolysis, gender affirming care, but I plan to use some of your other services in the future.
Very exciting. Well, we're glad to have you. It's always a pleasure seeing you at our socials too. And another nice thing about our hair removal program is it's open to everybody, regardless of gender, identity, background, literally any of that. We definitely encourage cis allies to come and get services with us as well. And, you can really feel good about that smooth skin because, you're giving back to the community. But also the majority of our electrologists and laser technicians, because we do also offer laser hair removal, are trans and gender expansive individuals who have entered into our social service programs, because they were in times of need, that we've sent to electrologist training school to become hair removal technicians. So you can get hair removal done by members of your community so that you're in a very safe and affirming space.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I think I read on your website that you guys, your organization is one of the top or the most trans-led organizations is that in the world or Southern California?
So, both in Southern California and the world, we are the largest trans-led nonprofit organization. And what we mean by that is that both our leadership is transgender and the majority of our staff is transgender, which is unfortunately uncommon in this industry. And being a trans-led organization, we receive only 0.015% of every dollar that goes to LGBT causes. a lot of, larger LGBT organizations without having any, trans members on their board, any high-ranking trans staff, even a lot of entry-level trans staff, if any, will, take funding that's meant to go to the entire LGBT community, really focus on, generally the G first, and then like the L and the B, and then if you're lucky, there will be a little bit of offerings for the T. So we do serve everybody. We even have, people who do not consider themselves transgender or gender expansive in our services, who just had a particularly harder time getting housed because of, chronic illness, mental health concerns, eviction records, stuff like that can make it harder to get out of rough sleeping or street homelessness situations. But, we are a trans-led and trans-centered agency, which is particularly important to us because although we don't believe in leaving anybody behind regardless of background, 1 in 3 transgender people will experience homelessness in their lifetime. So it's a pretty critical need in our community because of the disproportionate rates of employment discrimination and otherwise economic violence that we experience as a population.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for like a lot of the trans people. Like I've encountered people who've gone through that before, but I still think that's like an amazing thing for your organization to like be the #1 trans-led organization in the world. That's something to be proud of, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it shows that we have a lot more to strive for because although, I think for a trans-led organization, obviously we're the biggest, we're still not a gigantic agency. We have 3 branches with 5 total offices, 2 in Palm Springs, 2 in Riverside, and 6. We just signed on for a second office in Hillcrest, so now we have 2 in the San Diego area. In addition, in Palm Springs, we have the Marsha P. Johnson LGBTQ Youth Drop-In Center for youth ages 13 to 17.
Right, that's awesome. So in your particular field, you personally, what is your experience with the LGBT community?
Well, I hail from the community. And, without going into a bunch of detail about my personal tragic background, many of the things that our clients have experienced with, housing instability, economic disadvantage, domestic and sexual violence are things that I have experienced. And so I work in this field because I don't feel that I would be alive today without my community, and I want to give back as much as possible and take care of people who need it more than me. I'm very privileged at this point in my life to have a stable job, a stable place to live, and to be in a safe and healthy part of my life. And that's something that I want for all transgender and otherwise gender expansive people.
Yeah, that's great that you're going that you went through. It's not great that you went through it, but that you went through it and like you came out better on the other side. I feel like that's like a story that everyone should like hear. There's always like a positive road, no matter how hard it is.
Yeah, it's it's really difficult. I think I see a lot of people in our community, unfortunately, get kind of frozen in place by the fear of those kinds of situations and the hopelessness. And that's why it's particularly important, I think, for me to be in outreach and to be, involved in public speaking, spreading the message, contacting new clients, because I am able to show people that there is a future for people like us. People like us can, in fact, live happy, safe, productive lives, no matter, where we're coming from. And I want everybody to know that because, the first tool of state violence is to fill you with fear so that you comply in advance, right? If you're taught that there's no way that somebody like you can live productively, then you can internalize that and conduct your life and your choices that way. But, I'm here to say that that's not true. No matter what, there is a future for you.
So I know this question might be a little redundant, but in the in the particular fields that you're in, how is the LGBT community represented?
Well, I mean, as I discussed, the majority of our staff are transgender, and within that, obviously, we, work with general LGBT populations with a particular focus on transgender and gender expansive people. This includes, we do consider, of course, non-binary to be under the trans umbrella, but there are some people who consider themselves non-binary but not transgender. There are people who come from intersex backgrounds or who are gender non-conforming in other, ways and manners. So, we include all of those people, obviously, and then we also, pride ourselves on having strong relationships with our brothers and sisters and, the cisgender gay man and the cisgender lesbian community. And there is a lot of gender variance in those communities as well that can often go unnoticed and unacknowledged to people outside the LGBT community. So these are things that we aim to represent and celebrate as we take care of people. And it's very important to us that, we sort of fight the movement of LGB without the T. Our struggles have always been entwined, and we like to make sure that we're all accounted for.
So in your opinion, what are your thoughts on the community as a whole?
I mean, I love the community. It's, fundamentally, we are all people, and we have, the full range of expressions and actions and thoughts and alignments and opinions that people have, right? So it's hard to define what is such a gigantic group of people as anything in particular, but for me, like I mentioned earlier, this community is something that kept me alive when I was younger, and is a communal space where I have found immense joy and value and connection with other beautiful people. I see so much resilience in the LGBT community. It really, unfortunately, forces people to be very strong in a way, to be able to keep carrying through life with, that experiencing that kind of stigma and disadvantage all too often. You don't tend to meet boring people in the community. There's a very, interesting people that have lived interesting lives.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, you can take a quick look at me and see that I'm also not that boring at all.
No.
But I love that about the community. I love that about and maybe it's a sweeping generalization to say this, but there's a lot of just interesting, unique people within the LGBT community. And with that being said, what are your thoughts on the community on an individual basis?
I think a lot of you are very messy, but I love it. But as many of us as our kind of messy little divas, we're all just different individual people who are, living our own beautiful lives in our own beautiful ways.
Right. Thank you so much for answering that. That was that was the best answer I got from one of those. So let's go back to the Trans Health and Wellness Center in particular. Why should someone donate to the Transgender Health and Wellness Center as opposed to other organizations?
When you donate to the Transgender Health and Wellness Center, you know that your money is going directly to people who are in the most critical need. Transgender people, the majority of our client population is transgender women of color who are experiencing dire homelessness, domestic violence and sexual assault, who are being forced into survival sex work against their will, and who are, sort of the most dire economic straits you can find yourselves in. About 33% of our intake population reports having no income whatsoever, and only 5% of our intake population makes more than $35,000 a year.
what does the organization provide to the community that makes it unique among other LGBT charities?
So we are very unique in that we consider ourselves a holistic agency. In addition to our housing and social service programs, we have built in mental health care, employment support, legal support, community health, and benefits enrollment to help you get through all of your legal needs. And of course, transition navigation so that you sort of approach all areas of your life in which you need help at once. Obviously, you can remove a lot of huge barriers to somebody's health and happiness by providing them the basic care of getting housed and fed, right? That's the most important thing. That's the thing that we focused on doing first, housing first, always. But from there, rather than just sort of giving you a schedule and telling you to figure it out while you're in your underfurnished apartment, we are assisting with your mental health care. We are assisting with your job hunt, helping you get work experience, providing reference so that you can get hired. We are helping you navigate your transition and the legal aspects of your transition, such as legal name and gender changes, getting all of your documents updated, because these processes can be, very confusing and kind of inaccessible to the layperson, unfortunately. Right. And that we see an incredible amount of client success, particularly in the sort of last thing I want to touch on and what makes us unique is our community building. We actually presented to the Riverside Housing Authority recently about the success of our program because we do have a remarkable level of client success, which we define as becoming self-sustaining post-program as compared to other housing programs. And what our clients almost universally report, the thing that kept them in the program and enabled them to meet their goals and to graduate into self-sufficiency is the community that we form around the Transgender Health and Wellness Center. So you come to some of our social events, we have, fun things like our game nights at Trans and Non-Binary Thursdays. We have social and support groups, both for kind of specific populations like our transmasculine group and our trans feminine group. And we also have our general support groups like our Healing Rainbows, which is, peer mental health support for trans and gender expansive people ages 18 and over. And these sorts of communities that we form intentionally around us and our organization and our clients motivate people to stay with us, stick with the program, and not just, bounce to the next space. Because that is unfortunately a very common occurrence in housing programs, is that people are not given the support that they need to really become self-sufficient. So they end up just kind of bouncing from program to the street till they can get into a program again, to the street, trying to get into shelters. A bunch of trans people get rejected from shelters. Most trans people who are experiencing street homelessness don't even attempt to seek shelter because they feel, unfortunately correctly, that they are likely to get rejected from that shelter, or if they are accepted, experience violence of some kind in that shelter. So that community and that sense of safety and that holistic support is really what sets us apart from other agencies, in my opinion.
Right. I feel like it's fairly imperative for people within the community to actually find their community and experience the community. And it's great that the Transgender Health and Wellness Center provides that opportunity for people, because like you've mentioned, I've been to a few events. They're really fun. Everyone there is nice. It's really cool. How are the funds raised for the organization utilized in benefiting the community?
Well, so we work with an annual budget of $3 million a year. The majority of that comes from our medical billing side. Obviously, we're a not-for-profit corporation, so other than what goes to our normal operating costs, everything else we make from that goes directly to our housing and social service programs, such as our free mental health care, obviously our housing program, employment support, all of our support groups, and just, general intensive support for people in need that have gone through our intake process.
Right. Do you guys accept any other kind of donations aside from monetarily? such as food and clothing?
Yes, we do. Yeah, if you are located anywhere near one of our offices and you would like to, provide gently used and washed clothing, shelf-stable goods, hygiene products, cosmetics, wigs. The dolls are always looking for makeup and
Heck
wigs.
yeah!
We would love to accept your donation.
Nice, incredible. From your experience, how crucial, and I know you've mentioned this briefly before, but how crucial have the services that the organization provides been on patients' lives?
I mean, they truly make all the difference. So many of our clients, have shared with me that they don't think that they would have been successful in other programs, and that obviously they couldn't have gotten out of their extreme situations without that sort of programming support. So unfortunately, like I hate that this is the case, but I think it is kind of a matter of life or death for a lot of people. We unfortunately tend to have a pretty short, average life expectancy in this community because of the rates of, both physical and mental violence and the extreme poverty that people in the community experience. Unfortunately, you really can't overstate the importance of programs like ours.
Without naming names, do you have any particular story that you've either experienced firsthand or have witnessed?
Yeah, one of our clients had been living in her car for many years before she found her way to us. She came from one of the states in the American Southeast that are not particularly kind to transgender people, and she got started in her transition a little later in life. She didn't know where to go. She didn't know where to do. She ended up in one of our service areas, very sick, very hungry, in desperate need, unfortunately. And, after getting into our program, she has her own apartment. She's been able to get her car fixed. She has a job as a chef. She's very successful. She's been able to get her health problems taken care of. Now in her 50s, she's finally able to live as the woman that she is. She's able to get the procedures she needs, get her hair removal taken care of with us. She tells us just about every time she comes in, I wouldn't be alive if not for you, which, very meaningful to hear. I wish that she never had to go through any of that in her life, but, that's a pretty common story. I mean, obviously a lot of our clients are, originally from this area in Southern California, but also we get a lot of what we call medical migrants, people fleeing from states in which trans people don't really have any sort of legal rights or access to gender affirming care, which, unfortunately we are now seeing motions to sort of create that sort of removal of care countrywide on a federal level. We're going to hope that that doesn't go through the Senate. But, because California is relatively a much better place to be transgender, we get a lot of people coming from states like, Texas, Mississippi, Kansas, all kinds of places where it's unfortunately very, very difficult to be transgender and to access any sort of gender affirming care, much less gender affirming care that wants you to be successful in your transition. So that is something that, we as an agency are taking on. There is much more demand for our services, unfortunately, than we have the resources to provide, even with our size and our expertise. We're just looking to be able to help as many people as possible.
With that all being said, that's extremely pivotal that, the organization itself needs more support, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Supporting trans people, there are ways to for people to do it, but not everyone can provide those kind of services that this center offers. And it's great to hear like the success stories coming out from those individuals that have been helped. And I hope that happens with like everyone who seeks that kind of service and get the help that they need. But moving on, you're also an artist. You also happen to be an artist as well. I have perused your portfolio, and you have some great stuff there, including some provocative works that I can't necessarily show here.
No, please, yeah, anybody who is thinking about going to my portfolio site, please be aware that I do a lot of trans-centered, like, erotic horror that is certainly not safe for work environments.
Right. So, with that being said, what inspires the imagery you create?
I mean, I think a lot of my work comes from sort of the love of the body and the interest in the body, and particularly like interest in queer bodies, in trans bodies, in, bodily autonomy and the ability to, edit oneself to match your internal identity and your vision of yourself, as well as, the sort of beauty in things that are considered, perhaps like horrifying in conventional society. I have a lot of pieces that work with themes of like body horror or like surgery, blood, fear, darkness. But I think that's something that's very empowering for me, and I find a lot of trans people kind of resonate with that, and with that sort of like I guess like provocative, almost in your face approach to like kind of storytelling in art.
Right.
I'm also, there's unfortunately a lot of like push to sort of censor, queerness in general.
Do you have a particular artistic philosophy when it comes to featuring suggestive themes in your works?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I focus on, what I would consider like the erotic rather than the pornographic. Not that I'm anti-porn. I for me just find that I'm more interested in sort of a more like thematic exploration of the sort of like themes of eroticism and sexuality than just sort of like making something straightforwardly for jerking it.
To put it lightly.
Yeah. So I like to celebrate and explore the body. I like to kind of push the bounds of surreality with the body, and like what is beautiful, what can be considered beautiful, how can I reframe this to register as beautiful, even though I'm making something kind of scary. I take a lot of inspiration from like the Silent Hill games, a lot of like Junji Ito's work, Yoshitaka Amano, all kinds of like Kai Nielsen is one of my very big like artistic idols. He didn't do anything really like I do, but his work was very focused on like graphically illustrated storytelling, and the sort of like power of like figure and image and costume.
Oh, that's awesome. Many of your works display these themes of transness, depicting this in both hopeful and dire lights. Why is it important for you to showcase this aspect in your paintings?
Well, I mean, I want to communicate this sort of truth, and the beauty of the truth of the trans experience. Life ain't peaches and cream all the time. So, as much as there is like triumph and joy in the trans experience, and I myself feel very joyful and very comfortable and incredibly happy with what I have done to my body on purpose. There are horrifying elements of transness. You know, the violence you experience, the medical violence and gatekeeping, you know, the objectification and fetishization. That is definitely something that I address a lot in my work. You know, as somebody who's had like a lot of unfortunate encounters with people who fetishize transness and the trans body. Um, I want to be frank about that, you know, and I think that overcoming those things is something worth celebrating in art.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that view that you have with your art. As an artist in particular, how has your creativity led to a positive impact in the Transgender Health and Wellness Center?
Well, you know, I manage a lot of our marketing and advertising, not to toot my own horn, but since I got, you know, hired on officially to manage our social media, we have seen about a 70% increase in our social following,
Wow.
which is nice. Yeah, I'm good at my job. Um, so, you know, before this, I worked at a marketing agency, so it's
Hmm.
very nice for me to be able to, you know, use those creative skills somewhere where I feel like my labor is particularly meaningful.
That's awesome. Now let's go back to the Transgender Health and Wellness Center and the importance of people being generous. In your opinion, what is the importance of someone making a charitable donation?
Well, you know, now more than ever, we really do need your contributions. Unfortunately, the County of Riverside just chose to remove our funding for our housing program. Um, yeah, so we have had to seriously pare back our housing program, and unfortunately, a lot of our clients are getting transitioned to a faith-based agency,
Oh no.
who, as we know, is unfortunately not particularly motivated to take care of people like us. Um, so I would sincerely urge, although I know times are tough, you know, only give what you can comfortably give. But if you have some money that you would like to comfortably give somewhere, I would appreciate if it was us.
Why is it important for people to show support for this community in such a way?
I'd say it's particularly important both because unfortunately trans people are currently a political punching bag, and because transgender people are at extreme economic disadvantage in just about every way. We experience disproportionate employment discrimination, rates of you know, homelessness. Um, Denial of medical care, denial of services, just about anything that you could think of that could contribute to somebody being in a dire life situation. Transgender people are disproportionately affected by it, and rates of transgender homelessness have risen by 57% since 2017. You know, with unfortunately no sign of that slowing down or reverting back to previous numbers anytime soon. So I would really urge you to keep trans people in your hearts and minds and focus on the very real and violent reality that transgender people are facing, rather than allowing yourself to become distracted by things that are perhaps a little bit less serious, like sports.
Right. I think, in my opinion, like now more than ever, generosity towards the trans, intersex, and gender nonconforming community is absolutely vital. There are so many people in dire need for the services organizations such as the Transgender Health and Wellness Center provide, and only they provide. And support for services such as these ensures that these individuals get the help that they need. Um, so, with that being said, do you believe an individual's donation would make an impact no matter the amount?
Absolutely. Yeah, it all counts, it all adds up. And, you know, of the people who choose to watch this video, you know, even if you can't afford to give $100, if perhaps even a couple thousand people decide to give $1, then that's a couple $1,000s we can use to house people for a few months. You know, it really truly does add up and make a difference, no matter what amount of money you're able to contribute.
Right, that's amazing. For me, growing up, I didn't really know a lot about the LGBT community in general. I didn't know anything about like what it meant to be trans or anything, but I've come a long way from then in those times.
I never would have guessed.
For me now, being non-binary and like having this I was really irritable about growing like facial hair and body hair, and that's like the Transgender Health and Wellness Center has helped me immensely so far. And I know I've only been like having electrolysis done on my face for a few months, but I'm already seeing like incredible results that it makes me want to cry. How happy it makes me, you know. Ever since I started growing like my hair and everything, like I kind of hated myself. I hated how I felt, and it's very damaging on the mind. The services that you guys provide are incredible and incredibly impacting. Both for like the physical things, for the name changing, for helping out the LGBT youth in finding their community, and the mental health services that you guys also provide, because like so many people like really need that, and like how the funding is being utilized is incredible. That like I just want like people to like become aware of more people to find this organization and find out like the services that they're doing, the wellness that they're providing to other people. So like I guess I'm kind of rambling, but I just wanted to kind of express my gratitude on behalf of myself and those who your organization has helped thus far, and the many more hopefully to come. And thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Jasmine. That makes me so happy to hear. We're very happy to have you in our community. And, you know, of course, if anybody else watching is in one of our service areas or even nearby, even if you're experiencing transportation issues, please call us. We can help with that. We'll get you in. We'll take care of you.
Right. Fantastic. Do you have any advice for people like us who are seeking help in their area?
Definitely, you know, call, ask around, do your research. Unfortunately, with, you know, social assistance agencies, often resources are tight, particularly right now. People are, you know, overworked, understaffed. So keep calling, be persistent, you know. The best thing you can do as a transgender person when you're pursuing aspects of transition, of social assistance, anything like that, is to not give up, not take no for an answer, know what you need, and find people that are going to be able to help you get that.
Right. Amazing. All right, well, that about wraps up my questions. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Remind everyone where they can find you and the organization.
Absolutely. So I'm Skylar Swift Kardon. I'm the outreach manager at the Transgender Health and Wellness Center. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns in case you need a refresher. I think you'd probably look at me and guess, but you can find me and my work at skylarkswift.com, and you can find the Transgender Health and Wellness Center at www.trans.health. That's www.trans.health. Shoot us an email at info@trans.health, and we will get you taken care of.
Well, thank you so much again. Please go check them out and the Trans Health and Wellness Center out in the links in the description. Show them all the love and support. This has been Cutiespectives. I'm Jasmine Page, and I'll see you all with another special guest next month. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to share your perspectives down in the comments below and let me know who you'd like to see in a future video. See you next time!